followed this policy that it was the duty, responsibility of the government to manage, regulate, and control the economic affairs of their own nation states and their empires. And that got to be challenged. It came to be challenged by a variety of thinkers, of which one of them was Adam Smith, the famous Scottish economist who wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations. Now, in this book, he offers his economic criticisms against government regulations and control of domestic enterprise and international trade. He calls for free trade. He ended his discussion in the book with a tone of despair. He says that it is likely that Britain will ever have free trade as it would be to see a utopia in these islands. Now, why was he so depressed? We would assume that Adam Smith had given his best shot to showing why mercantilism, these government regulations and controls, were counterproductive and undesirable. Yet even after he gives it his best shot, I mean, he's writing the book for that purpose, he ends the chapter saying, it's a lost cause. Why? He explains two things, what he calls the power of the interests and the prejudice of the public. What does he mean by prejudices of the public? Getting people to understand the logic and the arguments and the desirability of individual freedom and free enterprise capitalism. Anyone who advocates these ideas and argued and debated with their friends, their relatives, knows it's not always easy to persuade them, right? The prejudices of the public. What do you mean government isn't going to guarantee employment? What do you mean government isn't going to give us welfare? What do you mean the government isn't guaranteeing my retirement? Okay. What do you mean government isn't going to regulate industry? It's for the good of us. So certainly the prejudices of the public are very difficult to overcome. And then the power of the interests. Well, you know, when government regulates, controls, manages overseas, some people benefit and some people lose. And therefore those who expect to benefit from government regulations, controls, protections, and subsidies, that are powerful interests to see that the government, once having established them, doesn't get rid of them. And so Adam Smith died in 1790. He put his book through a couple of editions, one that appeared just before he passed away, in despair that economic freedom would never see the light of day. Well, you want to know? Adam Smith was wrong. Yes, those controls became more intensive and more straitjacketing in the next couple of decades because Britain was fighting first revolutionary and then Napoleonic France. But when the wars with Napoleon ended in 1815, what was soon seen is that over all these years during the war and the controls becoming tighter and more pervasive, there was an undercurrent of an intellectual revolution. People read Adam Smith. Other people, persuaded by economists, they were called moral philosophers back then, economists like Adam Smith, wrote other things. And beneath this surface of government controls and regulations of the war decades, Britain was fighting France for almost 25 years, was this undercurrent of a change of climate. And with the end of the war, there emerged a free trade movement in Britain. And it didn't happen overnight. It took the 1820s and the 1830s, but in the middle of the 1840s, they succeeded in persuading a Tory prime minister named Sir Robert Peel to unilaterally end the agricultural protections and to eliminate the remaining manufacturing protections. And in a matter of 2 or 3 years, Britain established unilateral free trade, ending centuries of presumption of government regulation, management, oversight, and control of domestic and international trade, commerce, and industry. Economic liberty. That is the power of ideas. Ending things like slavery, ending the control of government over your economic activities. It happened in the past, it can happen again. In the 1980s, nobody expected the end of the Soviet Union. It's gone. Looking at the world today, nobody can imagine how we'll end this big government and this welfare state. But you know something? In each of us are possibly the ideas to persuade our fellow citizens, regardless of where we live, that there's a better and freer way to live. And inevitably through some unique historical set of events that none of us can imagine right now, if we've set the ground with a change in the climate of ideas among our fellow citizens, our fellow human beings, freedom can be ours.